Now, an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on North Korea's ICBM test has just wrapped up, and the U.S. envoy to the UN had some strong words for Pyongyang following its latest provocation. With more on this and other developments from the meeting, we have our Yu Joonhee on the line. Joonhee, it seems like Nikki Haley has adopted a much more hawkish line on North Korea.
That's right, Jihye. Now, Ambassador Haley warned the risk of military conflict with North Korea is now growing following its ICBM launch. Haley said Tuesday's test was a clear and sharp military escalation, and that Pyongyang could be headed towards a path of military confrontation with the United States.
Their actions are quickly closing off the possibility of a diplomatic solution. The United States is prepared to use the full range of our capabilities to defend ourselves and our allies. One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must, but we prefer not to have to go in that direction. If we are unified.
Now, Haley added the U.S. would propose new UN sanctions aimed at North Korea and called on the international community to cooperate in cutting off the regime's major sources of hard currency that could fund their weapons programs. She said the U.S. would also go after countries that have been undermining UN sanctions and providing economic lifelines to the North. She singled out Beijing in particular, pointing out that 90% of North Korea's total trade comes from China, and thus much of the burden rests on their shoulders. Haley also warned the U.S. would engage in secondary sanctions and cut off trade with those who continue to do business with the North. China and Russia, however, are asking the U.S. to embrace their so-called freeze for a freeze proposal, which calls for a mutual suspension of both North Korea's weapons programs and joint military drills between Washington and Seoul. Now, Russia, while condemning North Korea's missile launch, said it opposed the adoption of further sanctions or any use of military force against Pyongyang. Back to you, Jihye.